She banged on my door at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, not the soft rap of a neighbor borrowing sugar. This was sharp, urgent, 3 quick knocks that made my chest tighten before I even turned the handle. When I opened it, Clara stood there in a deep green dress, hair twisted into a tight bun, her brown eyes wide with a panic I had never seen in the 3 years she had lived across the street. "Jasper," she said, her voice low and frayed, "I need you to do something for me." That was how it began. No small talk, no smile, just a desperation that hung in the air like rain. "My name is Jasper Cole. I am 26 and I live alone in a tiny cottage on the outskirts of Grants Pass, Oregon. Pine trees line the road, and the only sounds after dark are crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. I work at a woodworking shop downtown, crafting custom shelves and repairing antique furniture. I fix what is broken, and I like the order of it. My life is simple, uneventful, and exactly how I want it." Clara moved in a few months after I did. We started as polite strangers, a wave while checking the mail, a nod over the white picket fence that separates our yards. Then small favors turned into something more. She brought over a loaf of fresh bread once, still warm from the oven. I fixed her leaky garden hose during a heat wave. She paid me with iced tea and a quiet thank you that lingered in my mind long after she walked away. Clara is older than me, late 30s, with a tall, slender frame and dark hair that she usually keeps pulled back. Her job is graphic design, done from her home office, and she carries herself with a calm control that makes her seem untouchable, until that night. She stepped inside my living room and looked around like she had never seen the space before, even though she had helped me hang shelves there 6 months prior. She stood in the middle of the room, hands clenched at her sides, and took a deep breath. "I need a boyfriend," she said. "Just for 3 days." I laughed, a sharp, surprised sound. It sounded absurd. She did not laugh back. "I need you to pretend," she said, her voice steady now, determined. "My parents think I have been dating someone for 5 months. They want to meet him this weekend." The room went quiet. I stared at her. "I sandwood for a living. I eat cereal for dinner more nights than not. I do not attend family dinners or answer questions about the future." She knew all of that. "Why me?" I asked slowly. "I trust you," she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out 2 train tickets. "To Medford. Friday to Sunday. I will pay for everything. I just need someone they will believe." I looked at the tickets, then at her face. The confidence she always wore like a shield was cracked, and I could see the exhaustion underneath. "All right," I said. "But I am not sleeping on the couch." She blinked, then laughed, a real, relieved laugh that made her shoulders drop. "Deal," she said. We spent an hour on my couch, mapping out a story. 5 months together. A quiet relationship, both busy with work. Her parents were Margaret and Thomas. Her father liked hiking. Her mother cried at every family gathering. I wrote it all down on a scrap of paper from my woodshop. When she left, she hugged me quickly, tightly, then walked back across the street without looking over her shoulder. I stood there holding the tickets, wondering what I had agreed to. The train ride south felt endless. Clara sat by the window, twisting a gold necklace around her finger, muttering to herself. I pretended to read a book, but I kept watching her reflection in the glass. "Are you all right?" I asked. "I am terrified," she said honestly. "My father will see right through this." "We will get through it," I said. "It is only 3 days." Her mother was waiting at the station, arms open. Margaret hugged Clara, then pulled me into a warm embrace. "You must be Jasper," she said. "You are part of the family now." I glanced at Clara. She mouthed, "I told you," without smiling. Her father was quieter. Thomas shook my hand firmly and studied me like he was trying to decode a puzzle. Dinner was loud and full of warmth. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, stories about Clara's childhood. When Thomas asked about my job, I told the truth, about the woodshop, the satisfaction of fixing something broken. Clara laughed at a joke I made, and the tension at the table eased. Then Thomas leaned back in his chair and asked the question that stopped us both cold. "When is the wedding?" Clara froze, her fork hovering over her plate. I felt my heart race, but I did not panic. I looked at Thomas and smiled as calmly as I could. "We are not in a hurry," I said. "We are just taking time to figure out what fits." Thomas studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded and went back to eating, like he had only asked about the weather. Margaret wiped her eyes and started talking about apple pie. Clara let out a breath she had been holding for hours. After dinner, Clara and I washed the dishes. The kitchen was small, warm, and quiet compared to the dining room. The sink was full of plates. A radio played soft country music in the background. "I am sorry," she said, handing me a dish towel. "He never asks that so soon." "It is fine," I said. I did not run. She looked at me then, really looked. "Thank you," she said. Later that night, Thomas announced that the guest room floorboard was loose and needed repairs. He said it casually, like it was a fact of life. "So you two will share Clara's old room," he added. "Easier that way." Margaret gasped. Clara's face turned pink. My ears felt hot. "It is practical," Thomas said. "You are adults." We said nothing. There was nothing to say. Clara's room was small and neat. One bed, a window overlooking a garden of sunflowers, a lamp that cast a soft golden light. She handed me a blanket. "I can sleep on the floor," I said. She shook her head. We said we would be believable. We lay on opposite sides of the bed, backs turned, not touching. The house creaked. A clock ticked on the wall. Minutes passed. My mind would not stop racing. "Are you awake?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "This is a little strange." She rolled over. I could feel her breath on my neck. "I hate lying to them," she said. "But I hate disappointing them more." I turned to face her. Our faces were inches apart. I could see the worry in her eyes. "You are not disappointing anyone," I said. "You are trying." She closed her eyes. "I am tired of trying alone." I reached out without thinking and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She did not move away. We fell asleep like that, facing each other, no lines crossed, just quiet. Morning came with the smell of coffee and pancakes. We walked into the kitchen together. Margaret smiled like it was Christmas. "Did you sleep well?" Thomas asked. Clara's hand found mine under the table. "Best sleep in years," she said. We spent the day at the town festival. Booths selling crafts, live music, kids running with sticky ice cream cones. Clara slipped her arm through mine without a word. "For show," she whispered, but she did not let go. At the top of the Ferris wheel, the town spread out below us. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "This is nice," she said. "It is," I agreed. Thomas pulled me aside later, near the petting zoo. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. "She does not bring people home," he said. "Not anymore." "I know," I said. "I am watching," he said. "Because she matters." "I know," I said again, and I meant it. That night, we shared the bed again. This time, there was no pretending. We talked in low voices about childhood memories, mistakes we regretted, dreams we had abandoned. She told me she wanted roots, a place to belong. I told her I liked fixing things that stayed fixed. She looked at me in the dark. "What do you want, Jasper?" I thought about it. "I want what is real." She leaned closer. Our foreheads touched. We did not rush. We did not need to. The kiss happened like it had been waiting for us to stop overthinking. Soft. Sure. When we pulled back, she smiled like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The next morning, the house felt lighter. We helped Margaret in the garden. We laughed until our sides hurt. We walked to the creek and took off our shoes. She splashed me. I splashed back. We lay in the grass, wet and breathless, staring at the sky. "With me," she said quietly. Not a question. A hope. "Yes," I said. On the train ride home, she rested her head on my shoulder. When we reached our street, our houses stood across from each other, same as always. Same distance, new meaning. She stopped at her gate. "Dinner tonight," she said. "No pretending." I nodded. "I will bring the wine." As she walked inside, I realized something simple and terrifying. The weekend was over. But whatever this was between us, it was just beginning. Monday morning arrived too soon. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the coffee pot like it had betrayed me. Across the street, Clara's lights were on. Same routine, same houses, same quiet street, but nothing felt the same. At the woodshop, I could not focus. I sanded pieces of wood that did not need sanding. Repaired a chair that was not broken. My phone sat face up on the counter, waiting. The message came just before noon. "Clara. Dinner still on tonight. No excuses." I smiled like a fool in the middle of the shop. That night felt different from the moment I stepped into her house. No nervous energy, no fake story to remember. She wore jeans and an oversized flannel shirt, hair down, bare feet on the kitchen floor. Music played softly as she stirred pasta sauce on the stove. "You look nervous," she said without turning around. "I am," I admitted. "This feels bigger than a weekend." She nodded. "It is." We ate on her couch, bowls in our laps. The TV was on, but neither of us watched it. Halfway through dinner, she set her bowl aside and looked at me. "We need to talk about something," she said. There it was. "All right," I said. "This cannot be a secret," she continued. "Not from my parents, not from yours, not from ourselves. I am too old to play games." I leaned forward. "Then do not play them." She searched my face like she was looking for an escape. "I need to know you are not doing this because you feel sorry for me." I took her hand. "I did not face your father and lie about being your boyfriend because I feel sorry for you." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "But there is something else," she said. She stood and paced the room. "You are younger than me. The town will talk. My parents already have opinions. I do not want to wake up one day and feel like I held you back." I stood too, closing the space between us. "You are not holding me back. You are the first person in a long time who makes me want more." She stopped pacing. "More what?" she asked quietly. "More than fixing wood and going home alone," I said. "More than quiet routines. More than safe." Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. We kissed again that night. Slower. Deeper. Like we were choosing each other instead of falling into something. When we went to bed, there was no pretending at all. The weeks after that were not dramatic. They were real. My truck stayed in her driveway more nights than not. She started bringing her coffee mug to my house in the mornings. We argued about dishes, about laundry, about which movie to watch. Normal things that felt earned. The town noticed. Mrs. Bennett from 3 doors down asked if we were engaged yet. The man at the hardware store winked at me. Clara pretended not to care, but I could tell when the whispers got to her. Then the call came. It was Margaret. Clara answered on speaker while we cooked dinner. "So," her mother said brightly. "Are you two coming for the Harvest Festival next month?" Clara looked at me. "Yes," she said. "We are." There was a pause. Then Margaret's voice softened. "You sound different," she said. "Happier." Clara swallowed. "I am." After the call ended, Clara leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. "I am scared," she said. "Not of them. Of losing this." I wrapped my arms around her. "You are not losing anything." She turned in my arms. "Promise me something." "What?" "If this stops working," she said slowly. "We say it out loud. No pretending. No quiet distance." I nodded. "Deal." A week later, her father showed up unannounced. I was in the yard fixing my fence when Thomas pulled into Clara's driveway. He got out slowly, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes fixed on me. Clara came out onto the porch, froze for a second, then walked down the steps. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Clara," he replied. Then he looked at me. "Jasper." He did not smile. We sat on the porch. The air was tense, but not angry. He asked about work, about the woodshop, about my plans. I answered honestly. I did not try to impress him. At the end, he stood. "I do not like surprises," he said. "But I like what I see." Clara let out a breath she had been holding since he arrived. She cried in my arms, not from fear, but from relief. "I think this might actually work," she said between sobs. I kissed her forehead. "I know. But life has a way of testing things right when you feel safe." 2 days later, Clara got an email. A job offer. Big. In Eugene. Everything she had worked for. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding her phone like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "They want me to move," she said. "In 2 months." I sat beside her, did not speak. She looked at me, eyes full of questions she was afraid to ask. And just like that, the weekend favor turned into a real choice. One that would change everything. The room felt smaller after she said it. Eugene. 2 hours north. A bigger job, a bigger life. Clara sat there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. The excitement she should have felt was buried under something heavier. "I did not apply for it," she said. "They found me." Said I was exactly what they were looking for. That sounds like you, I said quietly. She let out a breath. It sounds like who I used to be. The version of me that kept running. I did not rush her. I had learned that some moments need space to breathe. What do you want? I asked. She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. I want everything. And I hate that it feels like I have to choose. The next few days were gentle, careful. We talked late into the night about fear, about timing, about how easy it is to lose yourself trying to please everyone else. One evening, we walked the street between our houses. The same stretch of road we had crossed for years without thinking. She stopped under the streetlight, the glow catching in her eyes. I asked you for a favor, she said. And you gave me more than I ever expected. You did not trick me, I said. I walked into this willingly. I know, she said. That is what scares me. The night before she had to give them an answer, she cooked dinner at my house. We washed the dishes together. We sat on the couch. Everything felt painfully normal. I do not want to lose you, she said. Finally, I turned to her. Then do not. She searched my face. You would come with me. It was not a question. I would, I said. But only if that is what you want. Not because you think you should. She leaned into me, forehead against my chest. I want us, she said. Wherever that is. The decision came quietly. She turned the job down. Not because she was afraid. Not because of me. But because for the first time, she trusted herself enough to stay. Her parents came for the harvest festival. Margaret cried when she saw us. Thomas hugged me without hesitation. The town stopped whispering and started smiling. Life did not turn into a fairy tale. We argued. We compromised. We learned how to choose each other on ordinary days. She kept designing graphics. I kept working with wood. But now, at the end of the day, we crossed the street together. Sometimes I think about that first night, the knock, the desperate favor, the joke I made to hide my nerves. Not sleeping on the couch, right? She brings it up sometimes when we lie in bed, the window open, summer air drifting in. You know, she says, smiling into my shoulder. I only asked you because I trusted you. I kiss her hair. You did not need a boyfriend. She looks up at me. No, she says. I needed you. And somehow, pretending for a weekend turned into staying for real. Not because we planned it. But because when the pretending stopped, neither of us wanted to walk away. If this story resonated with you, if you believe love can grow from the unlikeliest of favors, if you cheer for fake dating that turns into forever, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We share heartfelt romances about vulnerability, choice, and the magic of unexpected connections. Comment below, stay, if you have ever found something real when you least expected it. We want to hear your story.